Don't say nothing you don't want nobody to hear. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. Don't say nothing you don't want nobody to hear. Because you lied, man. Damn girl, you pulled on it too hard. You broke it. Silly girl. You're so silly. Goony bird didn't even turn it on. Damn goony bird. Woo! Say it ain't so. It ain't so. What's up, Ray? What's up, everybody? All right, so, all right, so let me show you what I got going on. So, the chassis grounds are non-existent. So I went to ground something and nothing, just nothing. So problem being is it's got so much undercoating, so much additives on everything, I can't get a good ground. So what I did was, what'd you do? What I did was, is I cleaned off a spot on the chassis to bare bones. I welded a stud to it, and by doing so, that gives me a good chassis ground. And then I have to make a ground from that to the trunk so I can ground these compressors. So, because they was running, but they wasn't running good, and the reason why they wasn't running good is because I didn't have a good ground. So I checked the ground, so let me show you what I'm doing. So what I did was, what'd you do, Jay? I welded a stud to the frame. I'm taking this ground strap and I'm gonna put it right there. Like so. So I know that this is going to be a good ground, because that is welded to the frame, and then I'll check the ground up there. And this is going to go through this, then which is going to go through the floor, and then I'm going to show you. Yeah, let's get up. And then this. So that's going to come through the floor, which is clean, and then this is going to ground to that. So that means that this battery will be grounded to the chassis. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. So since I'm by myself, how am I gonna hold pressure on that bolt? Take a piece of tape, put a piece of tape on it like that right there. Take another piece of tape, put another piece of tape on it like that. And by doing that, that's gonna put pressure, just enough pressure on there, so I can come up here on the other side, and bolt this son of a gun down. I said it was. Uh-huh. All right, fellas. We're gonna have to regroup. Have to get a longer. We'll have to get a longer ground strap. That ain't long enough. All right, let me get a longer strap. What, Leroy? Okay. Haha, that'll work. That'll work. That'll work. I knew I had a longer ground strap. So put this ground strap on. We are putting a secondary battery in the 63 Impala in the trunk of the car. In the trunk of the car. So what we did was didn't have a good ground. So I cleaned the undercutting off. The bottom of this chassis is gonna get media blasted anyway, but I welded a stud right there, and then I made this ground strap. It's coming over here, and then this ground strap is going to come into the trunk because we put new compressors. We put two new 485C Vi-Air compressors on the air ride because the other compressors it just gave out. It was just wore out, and they wasn't really wired up like they supposed to be. They didn't have independent wiring. They had one power wire with a 30 amp fuse split off to run two 30 amp relays. So that's 60 amps. So that didn't work. So let me show you what I'm doing. So here's a secondary battery, and then Here's a secondary battery. There is two, like all this will get cleaned out. This is just, and then here's the new compressors. Here's the old tank. Everything's wired up. I gotta clean up the wiring a little bit, but that's where that's at. So that's that ground strap that I put. So let's turn this thing around, and then I don't know how you're gonna be able to see me. We just had to turn it around like this for a second, and then get some tubes. Yeah, just trying to clean it up a little bit, and then put a new battery. Got some new cable ends on it. Like I say, this engine's coming out, so don't really want to go too deep into it and have to do stuff twice. But like I say, just getting a new air ride put on, or new compressors. Not changing none of the air ride. Like I said, we're just changing out the compressors and redoing some of the wiring, putting a secondary battery in. By putting a secondary battery in, that lets the compressors have their own power supply, is the concept of it. So it's not pulling off of the so by doing it this way, so that's a ground stud right there. That's a ground stud right there. Then this battery will be grounded to this, which is grounded to the chassis. This power supply, which I'll wire loom on that runs over to those fuses, which is two 30-amp fuses. Those run up through that wire loom that I made, all the way around here to these two relays. That's two 30-amp relays, because you got 30 amps on that one and 30 amps on that one. Like I said, I'll clean these wires up, put them in a wire loom. So everything's been screwed to this board. This board was already in the car. The water trap is supposed to be here this week, but when it comes, then I'll put the water trap on the automatic drain. But for right now, I'm trying to get everything finalized. So now I got to make a ground strap that comes from that post to that post, and by doing that, that battery will be grounded to the chassis. So that'll be a chassis ground, and then the ground for this is grounded to the chassis, and then the trigger wire, which is the wire that runs all the way up to the control panel. And then come to find out, where's it at? I'll show you. Here's the control panel. I had to chase. Had to pull the carpet back to find. So they got air line running here, and then here is the control panel. This is the control panel in the car. There was a toggle switch right there that turned on the there was a toggle switch right here that activated the relays, completed the ground circuit. So when you flip the switch on the old system, you flip the switch, it grounded the relay on the trigger side. Therefore, it would activate the relays. The relays would run, sending power through the pressure switch. The pressure switch would tell the compressors on the trigger wire to come on. The compressors would run until they got up to 200 psi. Then when the pressure switch hit the 200 psi, it would tell the compressors to cut off. Well, I went to unplug this trigger switch, and when I went to I took the nut off of it to take the switch out, and when I did, the switch fell all to pieces. So now I need to get a new toggle switch, and I need to get a toggle switch that holds at least, yeah, right here it is. Here is the toggle switch. When I took that nut off to get it, like it was like this right here. When I took that nut off to pull that off, it just fell apart. It just fell apart. So now I have to get another toggle switch that will fit in that hole right there. And this one, I got to looking at it, this toggle switch is only 5 amps. I mean, that's not going to work. Need at least a toggle switch is 30 amp rated. So, man, this is the thing about old cars, man. You touch stuff that's already there, and it just breaks. It just breaks. So, like I said, I've been pulling carpet back, chasing wires, literally chasing wires. I found wires that ain't even hooked up. What's up, 87? What's up, Bruce? What's up, Family Outcast? What's up, Mustang? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. I have found wires that are, look, I have found wires that are naked on the end that are hot. Meaning they were hot, naked. When I mean naked, when I say naked, what I mean is the ends is naked like that. And they was just laying under the carpet. And I mean, they got power to them, bro. And I mean, and the thing about it is I didn't, everything that I did, you know, I already put new battery ends on, redone the ends, you know, what parts I've touched, I've redone them, but I'm not going to kind of dig into it too much because, like I said, this engine is coming out and I'm blasting all this and I got to fix that. So I'm just trying to get it back where I can get the air ride to activate so I can get it out of the shop. But when I hooked the battery up and started pulling wire back, I found wires that was naked under the carpet that had power on them. And then they started sparking. And I'm like, well, why's that got power on it? So I get out there and unhook the battery and I start pulling wires, and I was finding wires like this that were hooked up into the fuse box, which is right there. So I found wires that was hooked into the fuse box, and then you had ends like this that was hot, that was just like DJing or something. Hit the needle on the record, the needle on the record. I mean, what the Jimmy Crack Corn, man. So this thing has an aftermarket wiring harness in it, but the wiring that they didn't use, they just rolled it up and stuck it in there. You know what I mean? I mean, just, and I'm not beating nobody up on their work. I'm just saying, you know, sparks and this old carpet don't go together. You know what I'm saying? It don't go together at all. So, ooh, yeah, so, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, now, let's get back here. So, I have, like I said, I got this in here. This runs up. Got this battery mounted. This lead comes over, comes down. Like I said, I drilled a hole in the body, put a stud right there, then took that stud right there and put a stud right there, bolted it through there, and then on the back side of that stud, I welded a stud to the frame so I know I got a good chassis ground. I made that lead. That lead runs up and grabs that right there on that bolt, and that bolt goes through the floor pan, and then the battery ground will grab that, which will tie into that ground, which will run over to the body ground. Now, somebody's probably going to say, why didn't you just drill a hole in there and run a big cable from the battery straight to the ground? Well, that is a good point. That is a good point. And the reason why I didn't do that is because you see that cable right there? That's the longest cable that I have. So I got some number 2 welding cable ordered. So when I take this car and put on the lift and I blast the whole bottom of the car and strip the whole bottom of the car so we can paint the bottom or re-bedline it, what I'll do is I'll drill a hole right there and I'll put a grommet and I'll make a new lead, and it'll be grounded straight from right here all the way up to the battery. So that lead right there will be longer. This is all I had, so this is what I made. So I welded the stud to the frame. This lead comes up right here. It has a 1/4 inch bolt, 1/4 inch 20 thread bolt with double washered. It's bolted to the bottom of the floor pan, and then it comes, son of a bitch, get up. So then it comes so right there is a bolt. That bolt that comes through the floor pan right there is double nutted and double washered, and I'll just grab a ground from here to there until I get some more number 2 welding cable. And then what I'll do is I'll just drill a hole right there, put a grommet, and run one lead from here to there. But right now it's just using what I got to make what I need. Yeah. Just making a temporary ground. I don't have enough number 2 black cable. I got enough red, but I don't have enough black to run a ground straight from the battery straight to that stud that I welded to the frame. So I just got two pieces. So what I'm gonna do is just I drilled a hole through the floor and put a 1/4 inch. I put a 1/4 inch 20 thread bolt, double washered it on the outside, on the inside, and sandwiches the floor pan in between it, cleaning the crud off top and bottom. So the stud's sticking up through the floor like a stud. And I'm gonna grab the ground side of the battery with this number 10 gauge wire and go straight to that to ground the battery to the chassis, so it will activate the trigger switch on the compressor. And I'm only doing this temporarily because once I go and get some more number 2, then once I go get some more number 2, then I can just take that number 2 that's short, just put it back in my box and run from the ground side of the battery, drill a little hole in the floor, put a rubber grommet, run that cable straight through there, and then go straight to the stud on the chassis, and then the battery will be grounded directly to the chassis. But I still need to, either way it'll work because the body needs to be grounded. you know, the body's grounded through the body bolts, and then you got body grounds. So there's 3 or 4 body grounds underneath the car that ain't even hooked up. They broke. So the body needs to be grounded to the chassis anyway. So it probably don't matter either way, half to another. But once I strip everything on the bottom of the car anyway, I'll replace all the body grounds anyway. Because when I do that fuel injection, it's got to have good chassis grounds. That's for damn sure. Because that fuel injection, that or that Holly shit, it don't like shitty grounds. You got to have good grounds. Gotta have some good grounds. I guess I'm gonna have to end this damn live because people won't stop calling. It keeps freezing my damn frame up. Yeah, Square Body, you right. Holly loves grounds, boy. They love grounds. That's for sure. And if you got a bad ground, you got all kinds of problems. Like for real. As my guy Tulu say, for real, for real. Yeah, people always calling 87. Look, I got my phone in Do Not Disturb. So that means nobody's supposed to call through, right? Every time the screen goes black, you look on there, it's a damn telemarketer calling, telling me they need to put insurance on my damn 2006 Hyundai. I ain't even never owned no damn Hyundai. So, yeah, they gotta have good, clean grounds, man. Good, clean grounds. All right, so, like I said, here's the battery tray. Got the tie downs on it. And then, like I said, that's the hot side, that's the ground side. That wire right there it goes straight to that, and that goes straight to the body. So that's a good ground, because the only thing this thing is running is these. That's the only thing this thing is running is these. So I'm gonna clean up this a little bit more. I'm gonna shrink wrap that. I got some more flex line. I'm gonna flex line that. I gotta put a bolt right there. I gotta tie that down, and then we'll go from there. And then we've been on here 30 minutes, so I'll try to keep these lives about 30 minutes long. But everything should be good to go. Like I said, got everything wire loom, zip tied. Everything's secured. Everything is shrink wrapped on the end. Everything is crimped. Everything is crimped either with these crimps right here. All the ends has been crimped, and I told y'all this before, but I don't know if anybody remembers. When you're crimping crimps, let me show you. You see on a crimp you have the nipple and you have the valley, right? So when you take your fitting and put it on there, your crimp has a slit in it, right? So the slit goes in the valley, right? The slit goes in the ditch, right? And then the peg goes on the solid. If you put the peg on the slit, you're going to spread the slit open, and then the peg's going to go into the slit, and it's not going to be crimped right. So you need to rotate it and put the slit in the ditch and the peg on the solid, and then crimp it. So that's about it. All right, boys and girls, I'm gonna get off here. I'll check back in with you later. Appreciate it.